Hello, and welcome to another session of the Texas Academy of English presented by yours truly, Mr. Mendoza. Level 4, Chapter 2, Modal Reviews. In this section, we are going to take a look at the modal verb in a little more detail, as well as some examples of how it can be used, giving you a greater understanding of its function. A modal verb sometimes is also referred to as a helping or auxiliary verb. They are very common within the English language. In this section, we will look at what are modal verbs, what is the function of modal verbs, what are the types of modal verbs, and how to use modal verbs. Learning these rules and how modal verbs can function within a sentence can greatly help you in forming grammatically correct sentences. There are, however, certain rules which surround their use. For example, the word to must never be used after a modal verb. What are modal verbs? The modal verbs of English are a small class of helping or auxiliary verbs. What is the function of modal verbs? Modal verbs are used to express ability, permission, advice, obligation, or possibility. What are perfect modal verbs? We form perfect modal verbs with have and the past participle. We always use a formula to make a statement with perfect modals. Okay, what are types of modal verbs? Here we will look at the type, the modal verbs, and some helpful examples. So, ability, can, could. Some examples are, for instance, Juan can speak 3 languages. He could speak fluent German when he was 5. To ask permission, can, could, or may. Can I please borrow your pen? Could I open the window? May I borrow the chair? Another form is to ask for advice. Should. You should visit your dentist twice a year. You should eat healthy meals. So this modal verb is giving advice. Or as an obligation, must or have to. I must memorize all these rules. You have to remove your shoes before entering. Also as a possibility, may, might, can, or could. It's a fast car, but it might be very expensive. Uncle Richard may be joining us for dinner. Modal verbs of ability. So here we will look at modal verbs, their use, their tense, and the example. So as you notice, these modal verbs are for the present tense. Can, it's for general or use or specific ability. And we use it in the present tense in the form of can or can't. Richard can speak fluent German. Another modal verb, to be able to. Again, it's used for general or specific ability. And in the present tense, we say am, are, is, or in the case if it's a negative, not able to. An example would be Max was able to eat. In the past, the modal verbs used in the past were could, general ability. In the past, we say could. Anna could swim when she was 6. Or for general or ability, in the negative, we can say couldn't. She couldn't play the piano when she was 5. Another modal, to be able to, for general or specific ability. In the past, we say was or were, either able to or not able to. And as an example, we could say Alice was able to dance when she was 8. Managed to, specific ability, and it's managed to. Sam managed to finish the report on time. So continuing with the ability, but this time in the future tense. Can, again, it's general or specific ability. In the future, we say can or can't. And she can help you tomorrow. Or be able to, again, general ability. Will or won't be able to. He will be able to register for summer classes. So now let's take a perfect modal sentence examples. Remember, the perfect modal of ability, permission, and possibility. The perfect modal of ability is could have plus the past participle, and this is in the affirmative. He could have driven himself to work today. So what does that mean? It means that he had ability and or permission in the past to drive himself to work. It is also possible that he drive himself to work, but we are not 100% sure. In this case, could have becomes the modal of possibility. Another example in the negative would be he couldn't have driven himself to work today. And the explanation would be he did not have the ability and or permission to drive himself to work. We could also say we are not 100% sure that he did not drive himself to work. This is stronger than the same sentence in the affirmative. And as a question in the interrogative form, could he have driven himself to work today? And here our explanation is maybe, but we're not entirely sure. And so now let's take a look at some perfect modal sentence examples. Again, the perfect modals of permission and possibility are as follows. The ordinary modals of permission are can and may. The ordinary modals or possibility are may and might. When the modals become perfect modals, they all become modal possibility. Okay, what do we mean by that? Well, here are some examples. Carlos may have fixed his car if he had the chance. So this is something that could have happened, but we are not sure. There's also some regret that he never had the chance to fix his car. That's why this is a modal of possibility. I might have studied harder if I had known that the test would be this hard. This also expresses possibility. I am not sure I would have studied harder, but it is possible. Again, I regret not having studied harder. And another example is she might not or may not have come if she had known it would snow. So we are not 100% sure that she would have stayed home because of the weather, but it is possible. She may regret going out in the snow. And if we ask a question, and if we look at the interrogative form, would you have studied harder if you had known how hard the test was? I probably would have. The perfect modal would have expresses regret for what I did not do. So now let's take a look at perfect modal sentence examples. The perfect modal for advise. You may be familiar with the ordinary modal of advise, should and ought to and had better. I should have called you before I left. This expresses regret that I did not call you. They ought to have finished working by now. This is a deduction or a conclusion. It is 8 p.m. The workday is long over. So we can also say they should have finished working by now. The two sentences have the same meaning. She had better have paid the rent today. This is a strong statement meaning that if she did not pay the rent today, she may lose her home. So what does the perfect modal structure look like? The perfect modals have different meanings than their original modals. The perfect modals express possibility, regret, or deduction. So the structure for expressing a statement is always the same. We have the subject, the ordinary modal, the verb or the auxiliary verb or helping verb have, and the past participle plus the rest of the sentence. The structure for asking a question is also always the same. The ordinary modal, the subject, the auxiliary verb have, and the past participle with the rest of the sentence. So we have come to the end of the perfect modal structure. I hope this was a helpful review, and I have added a helpful chart at the end to further assist you in clearing up any misunderstanding. Again, I thank you for watching this video, brought to you by the Texas Academy of English and yours truly, Mr. Mendoza. Till next time, have a great day.